I grew up with a couple of wood block prints my father collected up in our house. And so as a young kid, I kind of got up there and put my slobber on them, and I obsessed over them for hours, all the colors and everything.
What specifically from those prints did you try to experiment with in your work?
Well, the specific thing that I'm drawn to is the posturing of the figure. There is a dramatic air to how they hold themselves, and there's energy. I like to take away gravity and reality, but also the robes and the garments. You look at the prints, and there's so much attention to detail, and not so much. It's not so important about what's going on behind the robe. It's all the patterns, all the details that go into them. That it satisfies my OCD looking at those prints. There's just so much fine detail, and just it made me experiment with smaller and smaller brushes to get a similar look and feel.
You also mentioned that you took away their weapons, samurai weapons. Why, and what did you replace them with?
I didn't want it to be about violence. There's always a kind of a phallic nature to them as well, and the positioning of the handles sometimes alludes to sexuality, and that wasn't necessarily what I wanted to approach. But mostly the violence, and I wanted my characters to exist and without that kind of. I think I approached them as prints. I did color blocking first. I sketched out and then I color blocked each color, and then the final stage was doing the line work over the top. So for me, it was sort of like adopting wood block print style.
Definitely the color blocking part.
Yeah, and then laying color on top of color on top of color, and then the final stage, which we call the dessert around our house. It's like when you get to do the fine detail line work, it comes last. I grew up working in a comic book store. I have an older brother, 7 years older, and therefore he got to shape and mold my mind. And he just passed all his comic books to me, and I get these troves of comic books because he was a manager of the shop. So I would get all these amazing comic books from Japan, and Lone Wolf and Cub was probably my favorite thing for 4 or 5 years. From 5th grade until 9th grade, it kind of consumed my. Frank Miller did a series called Ronin, and it kind of broke the mold. I was reading that along with Lone Wolf and Cub, and he took the samurai code and all the culture and threw it into the future, and just really opened my eyes to interpretation, and that anybody can approach it. And if they do it with honor and with respect, you can pull it off. Which was a concern for this body of work. We really wanted to do it justice. We didn't want to bastardize it. We didn't want to completely deface it.
You have a creative writing and a literature background, right? And we were wondering, since now you've switched to the visual arts, what has remained from that background? But also, do you feel now as a visual artist that images are better than words for describing, for visualizing for people? characters and storylines, those types of things?
Well, I still read comic books. I think they go well together. I think pictures and words go excellent together. And I guess I have a lot of narrative still in my work. I think whenever I'm planning out a show with my wife, we collaborate on a majority of our shows, or a solo project, I always think out the arcs, the subplots. I think of paintings before I go ahead and jump in.
Well, for your current body of work, what would you say is the main narrative?
I think it is the new with the old, and just how every time I go back to Japan, I have this immense respect for a culture that embraces the old and the new, and how they incorporate each other, and they don't cancel each other out. There's not a stalemate. From my first visit over there, I was just, as an artist, asked to come over and collaborate on a mural project with artists from Japan and Tokyo, and specifically on a large-scale mural. And they were so accommodating and so friendly and so open, and again, that reverence for the arts is still alive.
Yeah.
And they came with open arms and gifts and everything. I was just absolutely blown away. First and foremost is Eso from Tokyo. He and I are brothers from different mothers. He's an absolute. He's a walking, talking cartoon character. He's probably the number one. I grew up a few blocks from a Japanese Buddhist temple, and every spring, every fall, every summer, every winter, there was some festival where they invited the community to come and play a part of these different traditions. And it was just amazing. Again, being a kid, learning how to do the traditional Japanese dancing, and the Oban festival in the summer had all the calligraphy and all the had armor on display and screens on display, and you could learn how to silk screen. It made it very accessible in my community growing up. So.
And you mentioned that you were interested in the code of conduct for both the samurai and skateboarders.
Yeah, I feel like there is in any passion or any way of life, there are codes of conduct and ways of holding yourself, and uniforms, icons.
Yeah, we actually wanted you to list specifically what's the code of conduct for skateboarders, because I don't know anything about skateboarding. Like samurai, I can tell you, but not skateboarders.
Skateboard, I feel like it is. It might be more like a running thing. Each individual has their own set of rules, but it's more of the respect in a park. There's pecking order.
Yeah.
There's basically you earn your keep by representing, showing respect, showing up over and over, and until you are respected by the others and respected by them. Another way of looking at it for me is I moved to the West Coast when I was young. I left my family. We moved out expecting to move back to the East Coast after 2 years. And I grew up without aunts and uncles without grandparents, without kind of my personal family history. I feel like I was at a young enough age that I didn't know any better. I didn't know to look to my roots. I looked for my own.
Yeah.
And it was just the sensibility, the visual, the Kurosawa films.
Yeah.
At a very young age, I couldn't believe it, and it just totally dragged me in. So I feel like I am, yeah. I'm proud to be, it's an amazing culture, and my wife and I joke about it making more sense there in some ways, and just the ease of the culture. Also wrapped in, there is definitely a code, and that I guess that resonates with me. Again, it's the word of the day, resonate.